Well, I grew up wanting to be a fighter pilot, and that was like Top Gun was my favorite film as a kid. So I think from a young age, I was fixated on this idea of speed and adrenaline and everything like that. And that really morphed into a love of motorsport and I guess a couple of things, playing racing games on my console as a kid. And the dad of one of my best friends at school who used to race vintage cars and going away with him, you know, just spending the weekend with those guys in the paddock, camping, just surrounded by cars and all the noise and just the smell of that environment was so, yeah, when I was like 11, 12 years old, it just made me think, wow, this is cool. I want to do it. So I transitioned back in 2012 and growing up all the way through to that point in my life, I'd never seen any LGBTQ plus visibility in the paddock. And that made it really tough for me. And I guess going through the years that followed, I gave up altogether. I thought that's it. I'm never going to be comfortable in that community of people where I used to feel that sense of belonging. So pushing myself to go back, getting through that, and then finding my happy place, finding my feet again, and actually even more so, just really feeling like I was living my best life. I felt that I wanted to try and help other people have that experience, and I wanted to push motorsport to, yeah, open up conversations around inclusion, to try and create more awareness and acceptance. So, 6 years on from transition, 2018, I came out in motorsport at professional level in quite a big way. And that was the like leap of faith moment for me when I was like, okay, I'm gonna go for this. I'm gonna do it. It's not necessarily gonna be easy, but it's the right thing. And I'd like to think that I've played a part in trying to make the sport and the industry more inclusive. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was initially about just being very open and sharing that, having that vulnerability that I knew there wasn't any education in that space. So I suppose the first thing was to try and create that connection, that empathy that enabled people to see things from my perspective. I think when we think about inclusive leadership, it's probably one of the first thing is being able to connect with other people. Being aware of our own biases as well. I mean, I am me. I have my own journey in inclusion, but it doesn't mean I still have biases like anyone else. And so I think it's being aware of those things. Um, I think that again, at that point in my journey, I felt very vulnerable. So I think sharing that in a way that enabled people to empathize and to feel comfortable around me, let's be honest, like most of the people I met had never met a trans person before. So I think it was trying to make people, bringing people on that journey that I was on along with me. And and so I think, yeah, for leadership, it is about at times sharing stories, personal stories that share your own vulnerabilities and doing things that help create psychological safety and an environment where people are encouraged to be open and to be honest and to Uh, yeah, just to create a place where people know that they can, they feel safe in that space in a way that they're not going to be rejected. They're not going to be humiliated for sharing every aspect of their identity and being authentic. And I think that was a tough thing for me was to, feel like I could be me in the space that was always my happy space. Yeah, I mean, authentic allyship is, yeah, I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing now if it hadn't have been for the people that had stood by me at that point in my career. Um, I always say, there are three things that people can do to be a better ally. And number one is about educating yourself. It's about it is about building that human connection and understanding someone else's lived experience, what they're going through, right? If you don't have that basic understanding, it's very hard to be able to stand up and speak up for other people. So I think just building that basic understanding of different lived experiences, whether whatever aspect of inclusion we're talking about. I think the second thing is really engaging with people. I remember the first time I went back to the paddock and I was just, I was so nervous. And a small group of my friends knew that I was coming that day, knew that I was transitioning, and they were there for me in that moment. Okay, I think everybody felt a lot of awkwardness around me in that early stage. And so I think just engaging, right? Taking those steps, being brave, if it means doing something that goes outside of your comfort zone, it's about doing what's right, engaging with the conversation. And the final thing, number three, is really just using your privilege. Privilege is something that not everybody has. Not everyone has a voice, not everyone feels heard right now. And so privilege is power. It's a responsibility to use that to encourage other people to champion their rights. And there are plenty of ways we can do that. It is about acknowledging our own biases and being self-aware. And it's also about challenging discrimination if and where you hear it. It's not necessarily about being confrontational. I think it's very easy for people to get hung up on this idea sometimes of calling out. And actually, there are plenty of ways that we can engage with someone in a respectful way in a private moment that actually just encourages them to maybe learn from something. Maybe someone slipped up, they've used the wrong pronoun when they were talking about someone in a meeting. We can help people to grow from that experience. And I think it's really, when you look at it like that, it's calling in rather than calling out. Yeah, I mean, I remember going back into the paddock, and it was a scary place to walk back in. And I think when you're going into somewhere like that, it's very easy to feel like first and foremost you want to fit in. Um, and you know, it's easy to compromise who you are in that sort of scenario, I think, because when you feel vulnerable, when you don't see people that look like you're trying to fit in, you're trying to be like everyone else, right? That's what a lot of my life was spent trying to be like that. And so I think it's really, really vital that we remember to be true to ourselves, to true to our own values, to stand up for what we believe in. And whatever these things are, whether that's our gender identity, our orientation, our cultural heritage, it's about being true to who we are. Appreciate that, we're living in a really a difficult time. I think quite a chaotic time with a lot of uncertainty for a lot of people from the LGBTQ plus community, especially. And I think it's important to recognize that, if you're in a space that it doesn't feel safe to you, like don't put yourself under unnecessary pressure. Conversely, we need to do things that feel right for us and that don't put us in danger. But I mean, I think one of the best things I did walking back into the paddock, it was about reconnecting with my tribe, the people that were those core group of allies. And day one, I remember thinking, I had 7 or 8 people, 7 or 8 really close friends who really stood by me through that initial experience. And I remember feeling like, well, okay, if I've got this little cluster of people, this little supportive network, then I can build out from that. I can start with that and I can build. So I think it's about connecting with the people that make you feel good about yourself, that believe in you and that support your authenticity in that space. Sure thing. I mean, I guess one thing I'd say is that I've been in motorsport competing for 18 years now. So a long, long time. And I think that one of the aspects of of my profile is that people know me because of the inclusion elements of my story. And for sure, that's something that I speak about a lot. But obviously, within that journey, there's lots of other aspects of storytelling that unlocking potential, doing that in an environment that's very, very high pressure, and being a woman in what is ultimately a very male-dominated industry still. Uh, there's everything that goes into high performance teamwork and how we can take lessons from that, as well as just resilience and the courage that you have to bring as a racing driver in a career where it's not just the courage that you need on in the car when you're driving. It's everything that goes into the business side of that as well, and actually just an industry where you need money in that sport to continue. So there's lots of other elements to my story that I talk about, and I'm very passionate about connecting with my audiences, taking people on a journey. And in the time I've been speaking now, I think I've worked with dozens of Fortune 500s, companies across the board, from JP Morgan to Microsoft to Meta to Verizon, Ford, a whole range of industries, really. I think that there are so many takeaways and transferable lessons from the motorsport industry that we can use in the boardroom, in the workplace. And on top of that, I'm based in the UK, and yeah, I'm easy to work with. I'm happy to travel, and yeah, that's me in a nutshell.